Hi everybody, welcome to the Gagnon Atelier. I'm your old pal Tim Gagnon, and today is episode 2 out of 3 of our video series on how to photograph your artwork. And today is extra special. We are going to be interviewing my good friend Bonnie, who is the owner of the Lightroom PC. It's a beautiful, amazing photography studio in Panama City, Florida. We're going to go interview her, and she's going to be talking to us about all the ins and outs of the workings of a camera so that we can set it up to take the best photo possible of our artwork. So with that said, let's get started. All right, everybody, we are over here at the Lightroom with my friend Bonnie, and we are going to talk about that camera, this thing right here. She's going to tell us all about how one of these things work and what to do with it and all of those fabulous things. So without further ado, I want to put this camera down. If you want to grab it at any point, feel free.
Okay.
First of all, tell us a little bit about the Lightroom and yourself a little bit.
Yeah, well, I'm Bonnie Tate Woodby, and this is the Lightroom in downtown Panama City, Florida.
That's right, Panama City, Florida.
And we are a space for photography. We do several things here. We're a gallery, and we have classes and workshops, and then and I do photography here.
That's right.
In my studio. So there's lots of photography to be found here.
I know you've photographed artwork before, and you know this camera way better than I do. When I do it, I just turn it to, because I don't know how to do the manual stuff.
Yeah.
So I turn it to the portrait mode, and I get about, I try to get 5 feet away. And because if you get too close, the camera lens warps, and so the painting warps. So you got to get far enough back.
We're keeping your lines.
You don't,
straight.
Everything's straight. There's no warping, and I don't want to zoom in though either.
Right.
Because zooming in is bad. Is that correct?
Well, if you have to zoom in to the maximum that you can, you're often losing some quality. So you want to avoid that too.
Okay.
If you can get to a focal length,
okay.
It's the point at which you stop zooming on your lens,
right.
To get the most accurate view of your painting,
okay,
of your artwork.
That makes sense.
So if you're at a wide angle, like you said, you're going to start seeing distortion, warping of the lines.
Right, if you get too close, yeah.
Yeah, and then usually around 50, or let's say 35 to 55 is pretty accurate. So,
okay.
That's something to think about. Everybody's going to have a different lens on their camera, but that you can always look down and see that number there. That's your focal length.
Okay.
And each number is a different view that you're getting out of that lens.
Oh, okay.
The lower the number, like at the 18 end, you're getting a wide angle view.
I see.
And then as you zoom in towards the other end of the lens, which on this one is 55, you're getting closer. But on this lens, it's not telephoto. It's not like you've zoomed
like super far in, right?
Yeah, you've just gotten to 55, which is pretty close to what our eye sees. So it's a very,
hopefully not my eyes.
It's
because these things are worthless.
Yeah, mine too, actually. But your eye, meaning that it's going to be accurate. It's not going to be stretched, warped. It's not going to look odd.
Okay.
So that's a good point, is that if you're, whatever lens you have, if you're shooting around 50 or 55, you can expect to get a good view.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's great. That's really helpful there. So what settings would you recommend for the novice that may not understand, like how to set their aperture and their all of those fancy things? What setting on a typical camera? Because on mine, I've got obviously I've got night mode. I got it's got a picture of a flower, which is like for zooming in on close-up things, like zoomed in, or I think it's called macro or micro or
macro, yeah.
Macro. See, I know words. And then I've got landscape, and then I got portrait, and then I got a bunch of other ones that I have no idea what they are. But out of that, what do you recommend for the novice? What setting would be the best for photographing artwork in that focal point setting?
Well, it depends on how much trial and error you want to put into it. You know, if you've got a manual mode on the camera, that would ultimately be the best setting.
Right.
But that requires some learning time, and not everybody wants to do that. So a good in between, if you've got a camera that has the P program mode,
Yes.
that would be a good one to start with, because it's on the manual half of the dial. You know, it's with the P, TV, AV, and M. Or if you have Nikon, you might have the P, S, A, and M. So most cameras will have the program mode, even if it's not a DSLR, but more of like a compact or point and shoot. Program usually comes along with those too.
Okay.
So it's a mode where you have got some control and the camera has some control. So it's kind of a middle, and it's unlike all of these preset modes, all the automatic modes that are the real specific presets like portrait, night shots, food. Those are a lot of times going to force you to use the flash when you don't need to. So have you ever had that problem? Or
Yeah, where the flash will go off and I'm like trying to figure out how to like duct tape this down.
Right.
Which is probably bad.
Yeah, and that gets back to the light part of all this. If you're in sufficient light, then the flash shouldn't try to fire. But if it does, you know, you don't want that. But in program mode, it's not going to try to fire on you. You have to manually tell it when to. So you don't have to worry about that. And program mode is a nice way to get a good exposure, but you still have control over some other things like focus, color, accuracy, and you can fiddle with the exposure a little bit. You're not locked into like if you're on automatic mode, you can't do anything.
Right. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So I would start in program, and you see that the screen kind of fills up with a lot of stuff, and you don't want to be afraid of that.
I'm personally terrified right now, I'm just saying.
In program, the camera is going to guide you, so you don't have to worry about getting, you know, a terribly over or underexposed, you know, dark or light photo.
Okay.
Unless you want to do some tweaking. It's a little bit more automated than any of these other manual modes.
I see. So the P means program, and then you can go there.
Yeah. So in program, I would recommend using a tripod.
Oh yes, absolutely. Never don't.
Never don't.
I can talk too. Never ever do not use a tripod when photographing artwork. You must have, that goes into what I was talking about before in the setup, making sure that you have everything perfectly level. So you got to have a tripod to do that. It is impossible to get perfectly level with your hands.
Hand holding, right.
It's impossible.
Every shot's going to be slightly different. Yeah.
Exactly.
So no matter what mode you're on, the camera is always concerned about getting a good exposure, so getting enough light.
Right.
It doesn't know what you're photographing unless you've, you know, used one of these preset modes where you've given it a clue. You've said, okay, there's the little portrait. I'm taking a portrait.
Right.
But still, even then, it doesn't know if your subject's moving. It has very little information to go on, so it's always concerned about getting enough light.
Okay.
It doesn't know if there's going to be some shake and the whole photo is going to be blurry, even though it's got perfect lighting. Does that make sense?
It does.
So the tripod comes in to save the day, and that means you don't have to be concerned about what's called the shutter speed. You know, one of those numbers there, that's the fraction. Right. You don't have to be concerned about that getting too slow, and if you were hand holding it, you would. So even though you're in a mode that, you know, you can do some things with, you don't have to, because it's, you know, somewhat automated. Right. And you put it on the tripod and you don't have to worry about it slowing down and getting in shaky or blur. So that's one thing you can eliminate.
Right. So let's go ahead and let's talk then about, because you mentioned it, about lighting. About lighting. What I have, and you guys are going to see here shortly, is I have a little truss that I've made. And basically it goes like this. And it's pretty wide. It's about 6 feet wide, and it's about 6 feet tall. And I can mount lights. And it's made out of PVC pipe that's mounted to the floor, and it goes up. And so I can mount lights all the way across it on the sides and the top.
Yeah.
And how I do it is I have my artwork on the wall, and glare is always the biggest problem when you're photographing artwork, is glare or having a shiny spot, because if you've varnished your painting or you've, like in my case, not only do I high gloss varnish it, but I also gild all my paintings. So there's gold leaf all over them, so it's super shiny and reflective, so it's a real problem. So what I've done is I put the lights, I put 2 lights here and here on both sides, and then 3 on top. And what I do is I kind of Ghostbusters cross the beams.
Yeah.
And I don't actually hit the painting itself with the light. I kind of cross the beams in front of them.
Yeah.
And then I shoot through that to the thing. And that seems to eliminate glare. And that usually works. So, I mean, that seems...
Yeah. So there's, many different ways you can set up, but you're looking for soft, even light. You don't want shadows. You don't want, of course, too much or too little light. So you can, if you don't have any lights, you can use some window light. You can do like a, if you're outdoors, we'd call it open shade. So the sun is out, but you're in the large spot of shade. If you're indoors, the window light's kind of an equivalent. If, like today, we've got kind of a, overcast-ish day where there's not direct sunlight coming in, it's just a nice soft light, like a diffused light. So that's the kind of light you're looking for, however you achieve it.
Right.
And you want it to be even across the board. So if you've got a room that's got great natural light that has a big window space, and there's a wall opposite that window, that could be an artwork photographing area. You just have to time it where the light, it's not sunlight, there's not shadows, it's just nice soft light.
Right. So soft, even light.
Yes.
Yeah. And when you're doing when you've got a painting, especially, you got to be real careful about how, if it's brighter here than it is here.
Yeah.
So you have to really make sure that your painting is evenly lit through the top, the bottom, the sides. There can't be any quadrant that's darker than the quadrant next to it. They all need to be the same light. And that can be tricky because your painting has got areas of darkness and light.
Yep.
So you kind of got to figure out, so the way that I figured out to do it is put a piece of white paper in the same size as your painting or your drawing.
Yep.
Put that up first, set up your lighting on it, and go, this area is too dark, this area is too light.
So you photograph it,
right.
You take
I take some photograph, do a test shot. I say, okay, my photo looks, the white paper is even. So that means the painting should be even also.
Yeah.
And then I'll hang the painting up and I'll look at it, and even then sometimes I have to make an adjustment.
Yeah.
But that's the way around making sure you've got it even, the painting or the drawing is perfectly evenly lit. So.
Yes, and then if you have any glares, if you're using a really simple setup, no lights, just some natural light that's nice, soft, and even, you can use things, to reflect light, to bounce light onto your piece as well, to further even it out. So if you've got your piece and you've got a darker area, maybe that's causing a little bit of, there's a little shine there or something, you can always counteract it with with like a white poster board or a white, I don't want to call it a reflector, but that's basically what you're doing. So you can always add and take away light that way too. Okay. Or a dark board. So you can always add and subtract a little bit of light that way too.
Right. Now, is that when you're saying these things? Is this that I see this used in a lot of beach photos of those umbrellas that were like.
Well, same, similar, but a reflector is just doing, it's just doing that. It's bouncing light
Off of something
there's
else.
there's a light source, and so in our case it would be the window. So some light would bounce off of that white reflector, and you can use just a piece of poster board.
And that's enough to like just bounce the light to where you want it to hit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or if you wanted to take away light, you could use a black.
And it absorbs the
A
light.
piece of black, and you
Okay.
can, exactly.
Okay. So that's like a lot of times I see beach photography because Panama City Beach, we got a lot of beach photography. Everybody wants the sunset picture. And you always see they have these big like reflecting things, and they bounce the sunlight so that, because the number one thing in beach photography with sunset pictures is the sunset behind you looks great, but you're totally just a silhouette. You're a silhouette. So how do you avoid that? Most professional photographers have got these big, they got their assistant holding these big like glittery sheets of something.
Yeah, there's a
and they
whole
bounce the sunlight
of
to
light
light up
modifiers.
the thing. Right.
And you can do a really simple one by getting a piece of poster board.
See that? Poster board is good for everything. It's good for everything.
Anything white or dark if you're trying to subtract light.
Okay. All right. Well, that's fantastic. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, for lighting, if you wanted to go one step up and do something more like what you're doing, there are all kinds of pretty inexpensive photographic lighting that you can purchase. So you could get some, and I've got an example if you want me to go get it.
Sure, let's go get it.
Yeah.
We're gonna push in here.
Okay, so this is just a simple studio light. It's a continuous light, so it's not a flash. You plug it in, you turn it on, and it stays on. This is fluorescent light, and it's a very cool. It's not going to heat up and melt your artwork or anything. It's very cool, and then the light is daylight balanced, so it's a nice neutral light, which is what you want.
Right.
And
like you don't want it to be cool or warm. You want it to be neutral.
Right, that color accuracy.
Right.
So this is another option, and you can get them in all different sizes. It's just kind of a medium-sized one. Depending on the size of the art that you're photographing, you can get much larger. And the larger you go, the softer the light that it's spreading.
Okay.
So
now, how many of these would you want photographing an artworks?
Well, you really just need two.
Okay, one on each side.
One on either side, and like you mentioned earlier, you want to make sure that light overlaps. So you don't want any area of the piece that's not covered by light.
Right.
So if you have a larger piece, you may need more lights, or you may need two larger soft boxes. So
okay.
The light.
Now, what's the price tag on something like this?
Oh, they're really, like anything, you can get the budget version, or you could get the really
super high-end
the super mega version.
Right.
But you can pick one up for under $50.
Oh, that's
for
not bad
sure.
at all.
Yeah.
That's not bad at all.
Yeah, and fluorescent or LED light is going to run really cool, and then the light that it emits is going to be neutral too. I like fluorescent. And you can get different sizes, so that's an easy, portable way to light as well.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, all right, guys, I'm excited. I don't know if you are, but let's get both of us in the shot because that's what happens. But Bonnie, thank you very much.
Very welcome.
I am super excited. So do you have a website or anything that they can check you out at?
It's thelightroompc.com.
Thelightroompc.com. Bam. All right. Well, Bonnie, thank you again.
You're very welcome.
And guys, we're going to go back to the studios and we are going to set everything back up. We're going to shoot some pictures and we're going to make it happen. So we'll see you soon. Man, didn't I tell you Bonnie was awesome? If you don't like Bonnie, there's something wrong with you. I'm just going to say it. Bonnie, thank you very much. Guys, if you want to check her out, go to on her website, thelightroompc.com. It's going to be right there on the bottom, also in the description below. If you really like this kind of content, please subscribe to our page, the Gagnon Atelier, and hit the notification button so that you guys can find out when episode 3 comes out and all of our other videos come out. If you're watching us on Facebook, like our page, the Gagnon Atelier on Facebook. Like that page. Share this video with all your friends. Share the page with all your friends. The more people can follow us, the more people we can reach with our love for art and everything else included. So with that said, guys, stay tuned. Episode 3 will be coming up here real soon. God loves you, and so does your old pal Tim. We'll see you next time.